Hello, welcome to Access. I'm Nathan. I'm here with Dave.
Hi, Nathan.
Dave, today we saw a game called Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, we did.
It wasn't number 1.
No.
And it wasn't number 2.
No, it was number 3. It was the newest one.
Yeah, which is in many ways the best. Here are 5 things that I think, you should know about Dark Souls 3.
Definitely.
I'm going to start with number 1, which is Hidetaki Miyazaki is directing this game.
Yes, he is.
Miyazaki is the man who has directed Dark Souls number 1, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, which is obviously my favourite thing on PlayStation 4, but did not direct the last one in the Dark Souls series, so he is now returning.
How do we know that he's doing this, Nath? Because he told us himself he was there.
While he was there telling us about the game today.
Yeah, it was amazing.
In the presentation. And do you know what? I mean, it's important, I think, because people understand that he has a particular vision. He's now become president of From Software, which is the company which makes these games, because I think just on the basis of awesomeness, they've just decided that. But also because when he makes the games, there is a specific attention to detail about the lore and about the atmosphere of the games.
It is his vision. I don't think anyone would argue that he is those games. And whilst they can make them without him to a great degree, as they did with Dark Souls 2, he is that, he just is those games. It's his vision.
Special sauce.
He is the special sauce, the secret ingredient.
And you know what I loved more than anything was I've never seen him present or interviewed him before or anything. So today, watching him kind of explain the game, and you just kind of put the two things together. He's a mischievous little man.
He is.
Like he's got a sense of humour which you wouldn't necessarily expect from these really dark games.
It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because there was it was a live demo. Someone was playing the game.
Yeah.
And for instance, he walked into a dark room and an enemy jumped out and attacked him from behind, and he did a little giggle. He did it, and it was obvious.
The guy in charge of the game was like, "Yeah, got you."
This is what he wants. You can see now. He's just really mischievous.
My favourite bit was, it was like one of them Dark Souls everything's gone wrong moments, was whoever was playing did a roll, fell down like a pit, it was like, and like they didn't have any HUD on, but the guy must have been nearly dead. Then he started climbing up a ladder to get out the hole, and the enemy that had jumped out and made him roll in the first place fell down. Like, it's just one of them comedy moments you sometimes get. And it was Miyazaki laughed louder than anyone.
Yeah,
he
thought it was brilliant.
Like, oh man, it's just, you kind of get a sense of, they made a mistake. Is the presentation going well? And he was like, this is wicked.
Yeah, exactly. This is Dark Souls. That's what he wanted.
This is what happens. So that's it. So be excited. Number 2, it features the Lord of Cinder.
Yes.
Which Dave doesn't understand, because he's not finished the original Dark Souls, even though he's played it for dozens of hours. But what this means, Dave, is a really specific. I mean, they didn't dig into the lore any more than that.
No.
And obviously, Dark Souls 2 is connected in ways you only really find out if you dig right into the lore. But Dark Souls, it seems, I think, more of a continuation of Dark Souls number 1. Obviously, like a direct continuation, with the Lord of Cinder has been resurrected.
Yes.
You didn't even know he was dead.
No, I didn't. No, spoilers.
I mean that happens. I mean, he's the final boss.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's bound to happen. But this leads to the character of the world, and the reason it follows on from point number 1 is that we're returning to the same quite sophisticated idea of what this game is about. The Lord of Cinder and the first Dark Souls was about light and life force and it leaving the world, and the idea of light and darkness. These kind of big ideas to put into a game. And as you know, in the presentation today, they talked about this new world being. I think the tone of it, they described it as withered beauty.
Yeah, withered beauty. I love that.
They were at pains to say it's not just dark.
Yeah.
It was like a direct quote. It's not dark. It's a withered beauty.
They said it's not dark. Yeah, there's a faded sun, which I thought was wicked as well.
Yeah,
faded sun.
So I mean, and people have got to the end of Dark Souls and kind of realised that. I mean, even the name Lord of Cinder, is about. You get the idea of just like embers of something glowing, and it's almost faded, like this diminishing energy, and that is like the tone of this game. So, and if you think about, if you want to know what we saw today in the game world, it looks a bit like Lordaeron, and it has elements of all the kind of parapets and like steeples of Bloodborne. There's a bit of a kind of the gothic look to it, and it's just huge.
It's massive,
and it's really beautiful. And but it's kind of faded in like a sad, grand way. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And loads of the technical stuff that they were showing off today was kind of helped that atmosphere. So they were talking about the way that ash blows around the levels.
Yeah.
Do you want to describe it? I know it's like your favourite thing in the presentation. The first thing that they found on the wall.
Oh, it was amazing with a dead dragon.
Yeah.
A dead dragon, massive dead dragon, who had turned sort of to ash, and ash was just floating off him.
It's like these are stone dragons, I think.
Right.
So the idea was, but he looked like he was kind of guarding the keep.
Yeah.
Like just the ash was just, and it was like. It was like going into like a blossom garden or something. It was like, with blossom trees in an orchard. It was like amazing.
Yeah, it looked fantastic.
Wonderful.
And then when he went into the dark room, brought the torch out, and there were embers coming off the flames. Looked amazing. And also,
I don't know if you're going to say, but your cloak.
Yeah,
of
it
your
was
character.
the best cloth I think I've ever seen.
But the edges of your cloak, when like embers of a fire, when you blow on it, it kind of glows.
Yeah.
The edges of your cloak do that just all the time.
Like sort of burnt paper, when you get those sort of the edge of a burnt bit of paper.
And I don't know what that means. I don't know what your character is or where he's come from. None of that was explained today. But my God, I really want to know.
Oh yeah.
So that's number 2. Number 3. The combat has been changed. Some of the combat's been changed. This is more kind of technical. So that they showed us they were interested to tell us that the sword combat has changed quite significantly.
Yes.
So do you want to kind of run through that if you remember it?
We saw
like
3 kinds of sword, didn't we? We saw the long
We
sword.
swide 'em.
Was it a long sword, a great sword, and a scimitar?
Well, yes. Straight sword, a great sword, and then the scimitar.
Yeah, well, actually, a pair of scimitars.
Yes, that was the big thing about them. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can be dual wielded, and each sword has like 2 different special moves.
Yeah, movesets kind of attached to them. Yeah.
So the scimitars, in particular, had a spin move.
They were like whirling, dangerous, but interesting for Dark Souls players. He attacked a group of kind of lumbering undead, and sometimes if you get into kind of enclosed spaces with those, even though they're kind of the weakest enemy, they can mess you up. And he just kind of went into a spin, and they all fell down. They were all dead. So that was interesting to see.
And he was switching between these weapons quite quickly, I found as well. It was really quite tactical, and obviously,
as I say, all of the HUD was gone, so you couldn't see exactly how he was getting from menus or what he was doing with inventories, whether they had shortcut buttons. I don't know.
Exactly. The great sword, as you'd expect, was much heavier, and using the special moves would do a lot more damage, but leave you open as well. They were used for particularly breaking shields or breaking the block of an enemy.
So I think the straight sword, it was basically a lunge, right? So you can take a step forward, and it's kind of a low. You kind of duck and move forward in a low, quick way, and then you can do moves off that, so you can kind of sweep straight upwards.
Yeah.
Where it had like a really horrible kind of jabbing motion, where he kind of would stick things in the air, but it was like the big kind of, it was like striking a match with his sword, like, and then sweeping it upwards, and that's what with the straight sword. That was what was kind of that would make I can't remember, there's a specific word for it in the game. I can't remember what it is, but that would knock back the shield carriers anyway and leave them open to attack. And with the great sword, it was like a version of the straight sword attack, but it was like an even stronger one. And then there was a short bow. Previously in the series, short bows and long bows worked the same, but with less damage on the short bows, and now they're different.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to explain how?
Well, it just seemed really, really quick.
Yes.
It was like almost like a crossbow. It was
even faster actually than the series' crossbow.
Yeah, and he was able to use it to great effect. With movement as well, sort of like firing a shot, moving away straight away. So he came up against a knight. Oh, it wasn't against a knight, was it?
It was a large undead with an axe.
Yeah. Who was taking a lot of damage.
They were all like sticking in him like a piñata.
It was great to see him, obviously using the short bow from a bit of distance, and he would come in, switch out to a sword, and just going back and forth between those.
Like, I guess the key thing, again, like people have used bows in Dark Souls before, you don't have to stand still while you're aiming, and like they said, you can quick fire. So he was, dodging, rolling, and then like getting up immediately, and then firing the bow straight away. And like just a tiny attention to detail again of the Souls series. The enemy that he was fighting just had, by the end, about a dozen arrows. It
looked great.
Stuck all over himself. So that was good. Number 4. The hero character. This kind of goes along with the combat, really. The hero character is significantly lighter and more maneuverable.
Definitely.
Which seems like something... they were a bit cagey about talking about the ways in which Bloodborne had influenced Dark Souls 3. Miyazaki said that just working on something kind of gothic for that long had changed his point of view in certain ways. But this seemed like a more concrete. There was none of that slow motion rolling.
Yeah.
It was much more fluid.
Yeah, it felt very nimble. We saw some great sort of one-on-one battles with knights and things, and there is still a lot of use of the shield. Hiding behind the shield and blocking is like mega important. But at the same time, it felt really quick to unleash an attack, and like you say, the sidestepping, the rolling felt really quick. But you needed to be quick because it felt like a lot of the enemies are maybe a bit quicker.
It's almost as if you knew and you actually didn't. He really didn't. But number 5, his enemies are terrifying still.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
He talked about knights. Have you played any Demon's Souls?
No.
The knights in Demon's Souls were nasty.
Yeah.
They were just, covered in armor with a shield. They're really hard to beat. And so the similar grade of knights here. There was one point he was fighting 2 at once, and it was just really hard. They had different attack patterns and different ranges because one had a spear, and it was just really tough for him. And then there's 2 other ones I want to mention. One was like nothing I'd seen before in a Souls game, or even in Bloodborne or anything that From Software have done. Just one of the undead just sort of erupted.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
It was. It's really hard to explain, isn't it? Because we'd seen a lot of these undead around, and
yeah, they're just like regular ones, just going. Oh,
there was nothing that stood out about this one in particular. And as the character went up to him, he just, as you say, like erupted into this sort of oily, thick monster.
It's huge.
Kind of like a big fish.
It kind of enveloped him, didn't it? And it was no fixed shape, and it just kept shifting and swiping.
Yeah, and I really liked the way that Miyazaki sort of said that black thing, like as if they didn't even know what it was. Obviously they know what it is, but it was just kind of like, what is that?
But also that I like the idea that there's not necessarily like a hard and fast explanation for it, but it's a blackness. It's like it's a decay. It is the opposite of the light, which is normally the positive force in these games. So for me, immediately just hit back on the main themes. And then obviously it's not going to be Dark Souls without bosses, and they finished the demo with the boss. And as the boss sequence started, I was just thinking, this is the 3rd Dark Souls game. If there's Demon's Souls, it's Bloodborne. Bloodborne was full of some of the most incredible, intricate, evocative boss designs. I was just kind of thinking, really, you're just going to keep on coming up with amazing designs? Yes.
Yes, sure, no worries.
And so, describe what we saw, Dave. I didn't catch the name. They called it a something ballet dancer, like a dark ballet.
Yeah.
I didn't, but so there was like a female figure. But
it was sort of a female figure, but very elongated and distorted, wearing sort of an armor, but also had like a veil, a sort of a spirity veil.
Ghostly tendrils, yeah.
And I would describe
almost Arabian, right? The whole look was like, because she had like an armor mask as well.
And I was thinking at the time, she sort of moved kind of a bit like Voldo.
Yeah, man, I literally wrote down Voldo.
Yeah.
And she because she's all like folded up on herself because her limbs are so long.
And she had to start with one scimitar, which was on fire.
Yep.
And then she moved into her second sort of stage when got an ash scimitar.
I know. The dualism of it, Dave. The image like that. Other game does this.
It's amazing. It was inside a cathedral. It was so great as well, the sort of reveal, because you'd gone into this cathedral, sort of activated the boss by examining something, and the doors just slowly closed, and you were in. And then
it was an over-the-shoulder shot of the guy like looking back at the doors, and everyone just going, oh.
Yeah. And the carpet, when she came down and started hitting stuff with her sword, the carpet set on fire, and I just thought it looked amazing.
Well, like those kind of environmental effects, because she was hanging from a kind of a cloud, dripping a sort of an acid essence, and the carpet was sort of fizzing, and then she came down and it started burning. Oh man, Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
So early next year.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3 is coming. I could bang on about it all night, and I probably will do after we stop filming. But suffice to say, if you are interested in the Dark Souls series, this looks not just like more of the same, but like more of the really good stuff. It looks incredible. And if you are not interested in the Soul series, get interested. Like there is nothing that compares to it. I don't think it's absolutely unique. So I hope you've enjoyed this rundown of some things you should know about Dark Souls 3. Hope you're enjoying all of our E3 coverage. Do subscribe. Stay tuned to the channel. We have got loads more coming up.